Hello, this is Faith from Faith and Books. I'm just going to do a quick video. I'm going to try to be really short, but I just feel like I need a sense of closure and I need to do the last video for my three-part favorite authors tag, in which I wasn't tagged, but I decided to participate anyway. Let's see. So I want to do it now because I don't think I'm going to be able to do any more videos until the weekend, and I just wanted to get it over with. So I'm just going to spend a couple minutes on each of the top five, maybe less than that, because I'm spending time now introducing it. So with really no further ado, and in ascending order, I'm going to list my five top favorite authors. I guess there is a further ado. I am not highbrow in selecting these. These are just my favorites that I love to read and reread, and I find reliable, and somehow the way they write and the world they present in their books speaks to me in some way. It's not highbrow at all. It's not overly intellectual or anything like that. It's just my favorite authors that I really enjoy reading. So number 5 is Graham Greene. He's an author who writes political intrigue. I think he wrote in the 40s and 50s, maybe 60s, early 60s. And he writes political thriller type things. They're more gritty than I usually like, and they sometimes get a little more explicit than I like, but for some reason he gets a pass because he writes beautifully, and I love his character development because it's not a superficial thing. It's always dealing with a broken, cynical person caught up in some sort of intrigue or oppressive atmosphere. Usually it's political, where there's sort of grasping at the light. You know, they intuit that there's more to life, and they're trying to get to it desperately, even though they really don't know how. And they're so cynical, they're so lost. But somehow he portrays them really so humanely and so three-dimensionally. His stories are just always satisfying. So I've read a good deal of them. There are probably a few I've missed. I have some back there. But Graham Greene, he's a real favorite. My next one is P.G. Wodehouse. He's like the diametrically opposed to Graham Greene, but he writes such fun novels. They're always laugh out loud events. They're so clever and witty and lovable characters and zany, and he's just a sure hit, and he's great for if you're grieving or life is getting you down and you need something to cheer you up. You need to escape somewhere. P.G. Wodehouse just never fails. He's wonderful. I like his series, like the Bertie and Wooster, and his Blandings. But I also like his standalone ones. I think my favorite is The Indiscretions of Archie. I just think that is the most lovable novel, and it's really, really good, really satisfying. So P.G. Wodehouse would be my next, number 4. Number 3 is Agatha Christie. For a long time in my life, I did not read mysteries, or I sort of tended to avoid them, because I think it had to do with the fact that when I was a child, my brother died, and so I found death just a horrific thing, a devastating thing, and I couldn't understand it being used as a plot device for a puzzle, basically, is what I saw mysteries as. And so it just kind of offended me. And then when I got older, I worked at the Public Defender's Death Penalty Defense Unit, And I would have to read autopsies and police reports, and murder is horrible. It's a horrible thing. I can't even watch those gritty, realistic shows on TV that depict stuff like this. I had nightmares. It's terrible. Murder is terrible. So I just avoided mysteries. But I kind of mellowed as I got older, and I started to see them more as a way to vicariously find justice, because the detective always gets his or her man. And so I stopped taking it that way, and I sort of mellowed and said, okay, let me be more open-minded about this. Let me see what it is that so many people are attracted to. And so the first author that I deliberately tried to read to see if I could get into mysteries was Agatha Christie. And of course, there's a reason why she's so beloved, right? So she writes great stories. Some are better than others, but they're always a guaranteed pleasure. And I've just read so many of hers now. I kind of get a little. Most people seem to really like Poirot. I can't read too many Poirots in a row, or else he gets a little cloying to me, and I get tired of hearing about his gray cells. I really like Miss Marple better, maybe, but I also like her standalones, and I've read a couple of the ones, the couple, like the Flapper couple, Penny or something. I can't remember their name, but anyway, Agatha Christie, she's just a sure read, a great escape, and clever and good character development. I just really enjoy her. So she's a sure hit. Then number 2 would be Jane Austen. Jane Austen. So I read Pride and Prejudice when I was a teenager, or maybe in my early 20s, and I liked it well enough. I felt like I'd gotten through it and had appreciated it. But I was not drawn to read anything more by her until I was married. I was having this horrible, horrible week. I had a 3.5-year-old, a 2-year-old, and I think a 4 or 5-month-old baby. My husband was away on business, and my 3.5-year-old fell and knocked out her 2 front teeth, and her mouth just swelled up so horribly. She had these fat lips that she couldn't eat anything. And I didn't have any ice. Like the ice maker wasn't working. So I had these 2 trays, and I would make ice, and then I would chip it with an ice cream scoop. And I was just feeding it to her, trying to keep her from being dehydrated. And she was just melting away because she couldn't eat. It was horrible. She probably should have been in the hospital, but I just couldn't handle the idea that my husband was away and that she'd be in the hospital, and somehow I'd have these 2 other kids to take care of. So it was just a horrendous week. And also during that week, we were having terrible thunderstorms. It was in the summer, and the basement flooded. I had never had to deal with a flooded basement before. It was horrible. It was just the horrible, most horrible week. And one thing that saved me was I sat down. Somehow I managed to get all the kids to sleep. I sat down in front of the TV, and I just turned on the TV, and I saw Colin Firth being Mr. Darcy. And it was that 1995 BBC miniseries. And I watched it and I thought, oh yeah, I know this story. I read this book. And it was so captivating. I remember they were repeating it, so I got to see more of the series than just one show that week. As it was a rerun. So that really intrigued me, and I ran out as soon as I could to get Pride and Prejudice, and I read it and reread it and reread it, and then I read Sense and Sensibility, and then I read Persuasion, and then I read Northanger Abbey, and then I read Emma, and then I read Mansfield Park, and I have read all of them multiple times, and I went on a long 10-year Jane Austen obsession. And I still am very fond of her. I just reread Sense and Sensibility a couple years ago. She just gets better with every rereading. Mansfield Park that was my least favorite, but it's grown on me so much. I really think it's masterful. So Jane Austen, she's number 2. Now I'm ashamed of my number 1 because at one point Harlequin Romance published her books, which is stupid because her books are so much more than these stupid romance. Sorry to offend anybody who's into romance. Sorry about that. But anyway, it's Georgette Hare. Georgette Hare, and I have a bunch of her books right here. These are Georgette Hare. That I love her books. I discovered her after rediscovering Jane Austen. I used to go to this site called Pemberley, and it was for Jane Austen aficionados. And they kept mentioning this Georgette Hare. I thought it was Hire because I'm American and I didn't know how to pronounce her last name. But I started reading her. She wrote historical fiction. She wrote many Regency romances. She kind of invented that. She's very much in the Jane Austen style in a way, because of the tension between the hero and the heroine. But she's has a broader sense of humor, and not as ironic or tongue-in-cheek, but she's very historically accurate. So a lot of the trappings of that era come out, the clothing, the way they dress, the kind of carriages they traveled in, that sort of thing. And she's just slapstick funny, almost not quite slapstick, but a broader sense of humor that just has you laughing out loud a lot of times. She wrote lots and lots of books. I think she wrote 50, and I've probably read maybe 37, 38 of them, so I still have somewhere to go. This last summer, I read all of her. She also wrote detective stories as well, kind of like Agatha Christie, right around the same time period. And she wrote 12 of them, and I dedicated this spring and summer to reading all of those. They were really enjoyable. I had a really fun summer because of that. But I just go back and reread her Regency romances anytime I want to escape. My favorite, I think, is Sylvester. I also love A Civil Contract and The Unknown Ajax, and so many. I just think she's a scream, and she writes really well. Her characters just leap off the page. There's so much humor in it. She's just and she's intelligent. It's an intelligent and clean read, so I appreciate that. So she's really my number one. It's not highbrow at all, but she's so enjoyable, and I just love her. I'm just a real fan. So those are my top 5 favorite authors, and oh my gosh, I've been talking for 12 minutes. I meant to only do 10, so I'm hopeless, and I won't be able to record again until the weekend. So for now, au revoir.